Well, we are also honored this afternoon to have Tim McNulty. He is the Associate Vice President of Governmental Relations at Carnegie Mellon University. Tim has had a front row seat to yet another Pittsburgh Renaissance. He has seen firsthand how higher education can cooperate to create and foster an economy focused on innovation, and how this focus helps attract and retain a millennial workforce. Tim has served as the director of the Heinz College Center for Economic Development and as staff director for the Regional Revitalization Initiative of the Allegheny Conference. Please join me in welcoming Tim to the podium.
Thank you very much, Lynn, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to have a chance to come up from Pittsburgh and share a little bit of the Pittsburgh experience as you embark on this incredible journey that the foundation has launched to really energize the Erie innovation economy. I will tell you my perspectives today are shaped by really two things. First, I had the incredible honor of being part of the great economic development team in Tom Ridge's administration with Governor Ridge, my secretary Tom Hagan, and my great friend and colleague Barbara Chafee, who kept me in line for 7 years in Harrisburg. And then my views are also shaped by just having spent the last 15 years around these incredibly exciting and dynamic young faculty and students at Carnegie Mellon. I mean, I should be paying them, but please don't pass that back to them. I'm going to talk today from the experience of Carnegie Mellon, but it goes without saying, Pittsburgh wouldn't be what it is today without the University of Pittsburgh, UPMC, all the colleges and universities. It's really how we've all come together that's made a difference. But I'm going to share just the CMU story to hopefully give you some sense of the potential you have with this exciting innovation district. The Pittsburgh story, starts unfortunately in a very familiar place for those of us who were born and raised in the industrial heartland of the United States. In 1979, really at the peak of steel employment in the Pittsburgh region, a combination of global competition and some upstart companies in the southern part of the United States who had a new technology completely disrupted the steel industry. And within a period of a little over 2 years, Pittsburgh lost 100,000 jobs. And by 1983, unemployment in much of the region had reached close to 20%. And so as the Post-Gazette quote there says, there was really nowhere to go but up. And what really the visionary leaders of Pittsburgh decided at that moment is that they were going to go up by building on the strengths of their universities and tapping that talent and tapping that energy. Carnegie Mellon's engagement and spark to be part of this transformation of Pittsburgh started in a very unusual place, not in Pittsburgh, but here on 3 Mile Island, in the debris of reactor number 2. That's where a team from the Robotics Institute, which had just been formed a couple years earlier, led by Red Whitaker and a very hungry and energetic graduate students, began the process of building a robot that could autonomously navigate its way through that debris to help with the cleanup. What that project did is it inspired the passion to build mobile robots that could work anywhere, could explore Mars, could work in factories, could guard troops. It was the launch really of a journey that would propel Carnegie Mellon and Pittsburgh to the very lead and the center of the robotics industry. The first pathway out of that journey took was the launch of really 3 decades of efforts to build autonomous vehicles. This is the first autonomous vehicle ever built by Carnegie Mellon faculty. You could walk faster than this little guy could go. His name is Terragator. But over the next 3 decades, the progress would continue rapidly. And you can see from the top, with all the bulky equipment, the refinements that would go as the technology would pursue, as it would advance, as the algorithms would be developed, as computer processing would be developed. And the last generation here down in the corner is a Cadillac SRX You can see all the autonomous technology, all the sensors, the LiDAR, the processing capabilities embedded in the vehicle. That's nearly ready for a consumer to buy, and we're only a couple years away from that. The same DNA that was involved in developing autonomous vehicles was carried by faculty over into other areas. So there are robots developed by CMU faculty that are plowing fields in Iowa, that are picking strawberries, in California that are guarding troops in the Middle East, the technology was involved in the Explorer and that are on Mars, in moving goods in warehouses, even now in navigating through the human heart. But what they were doing was really building more than robots. They were helping transform the very face of Pittsburgh. In the mid-1990s, that 100-year-old steel foundry that's on the top was converted from an abandoned factory into the National Robotics Engineering Center to be the state-of-the-art place where scientists could come together with companies, with entrepreneurs, and invent and commercialize new products. Over the course of the last couple decades, NREC has helped create an entire ecosystem of robotics companies. There are now between 30 and 40 robotics firms in the Pittsburgh area, employing over 3,000 workers. The site has also generated tens of millions of dollars of follow-on funding, everything from housing to commercial redevelopment in Lawrenceville. It's helped bring the banks of the Allegheny back to life. Now, I wouldn't want to say to you that these 3,000 jobs have had the effect of replacing the jobs that were lost in steel, or replacing, more importantly, the way of life that was lost with the steel industry. Nor have they brought opportunity that reaches into every neighborhood of Pittsburgh. But what they have done is they've given Pittsburgh a foothold in an industry of the future. And from that foothold, you can build other economic development strategies that can be inclusive and more far-reaching. Perhaps the culmination, I think, of this journey that started in 3 Mile Island was the announcement in December by the Department of Defense that a Carnegie Mellon-led team had been selected to be the home of a $250 million National Robotics Innovation Center whose sole purpose, with 175 different partners, will be to build the next generation of mobile robotics that can help bring manufacturing back to the United States. In essence, to complete the journey that began with the dislocation of steel in Pittsburgh. Now, so far in my remarks, I've talked a lot about scientists, and obviously they deserve an enormous amount of the credit. But if they were here, if Ed Whitaker was here, and if his colleagues were here, they would say that none of this was possible without the very essence of what Pittsburgh is. In addition to the scientists, it took the large companies, Alcoa, particularly Westinghouse. It took the small machine shops who brought their ability to prototype things to robotics and helped differentiate Pittsburgh from Boston and San Francisco. It took foundations like the Erie Foundation, who invested the patient capital that would allow that research to take root. We had tremendous cooperation from state and federal and local government. We had help from developers, like the developers that redid the old steel foundry. We also had landowners who simply made their land available so you can test robots. You know, and it comes in handy that there is an area not far from Pittsburgh that looks a little like the surface of Mars, but you know, you don't want to tell the Convention and Visitors Bureau that. But in essence, everyone was in the game. In fact, you can't tell the story of Pittsburgh robotics without mentioning Big Jim's. Big Jim's is a great place to get a fish sandwich. It's halfway between campus and the Mon River, where a lot of the testing of the robotics was done. It was more than a place for nourishment. It was a place where people could gather, where scientists could work with business leaders, where students could work with faculty, where people from big companies could work with people from small companies. In essence, it created the hive, the hub, where you can foster innovation, where you could build real collaboration. Now again, I'm not going to say you really need to invest in a great fish sandwich to get your innovation district going, although I'll be back if you do. But I just want to mention big gyms because we all have a role to play. It might be the person who opens a coffee shop. It might be the person who rehabs a building. It might be the person who starts a great art festival or builds on a great art festival or music festival. It helps just create the fabric of innovation that sets places apart. That very concept is at the heart of the Innovation District that Bruce Katz at the Brookings Institute has helped evangelize and which your foundation has picked up on so aggressively. It really is that sense of just creating the place where the entire community can come together, where you can create that seamless fabric of innovation that really is so important for new jobs to be created, for new products to be created. Erie has all these ingredients. You have 5 incredible institutions of higher education with a 6th one on the way. You have an incredible manufacturing base, a still vibrant manufacturing base. And in a future where really everything will depend on combining the physical with the digital, to play off Roy's comment, you're going to need that manufacturing base more than ever. You have tremendous anchor companies who are investing and reinvesting in the downtown, as Mike mentioned in his opening remarks. And then you have this incredible quality of life that nowhere in the country can match. I just picked a few samples of some of the things going on at the universities in the area. Not an exhaustive list by any means. Some of them are research projects going on in areas like cybersecurity that Mike mentioned. Some are in open labs where you're working with companies. Others are examples of startup companies that are just being spun out of your great universities here. What strikes me about the list is if you look at this list, these are all the technologies that are going to shape the future. These are all the things that are going to make the difference. It's all happening here. You have it. You have the future within your grasp. I want to close by just looking at Lake Erie. I'm a neighbor from Pittsburgh, but I've been a neighbor all my life. I'm from the shores of Lake Michigan. My father taught me to love of the Great Lakes for both recreation and for inspiration. There are a lot of definitions of economic development, that are very clinical about job creation, job retention, wealth creation. In my experience, what it comes down to, what economic development is all about, it is about a community coming together and saying that we're going to shape our destiny, that we're going to shape our direction. In some respects, these times can be scarier than the days when Pittsburgh confronted the collapse of steel. Technology is moving so fast. Something developed across the world, a new product across the world can reach your market in literally a couple seconds now. But this is also the time where I think the power of ideas generated anywhere can have the potential to take root. I can't wait to see what Erie's going to do. I'm very excited about it. Thank you for having me.